and all is still go as we monitor our status for it. Good luck and Godspeed.
Have you ever had a premonition, a feeling that something dreadful was about to happen?
No, Mother, I have not been drinking.
Do you happen to have a pair of birds that are just friendly?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
I have to go back into the past once more, just once more.
This is HitchPod, a podcast counting down the 20 best movies of the wonderful 20th century director Alfred Hitchcock. In this podcast, we rewatch a Hitchcock movie and then we talk about it. I'm Dan Lipke and I'm lighting a cigarette that's about to explode.
And I'm Kat Jones and I'm ushering children away from the jungle gym because this time around we're rewatching the fifth best Hitchcock movie as voted on by our listeners, The Birds from 1963.
Yeah, so what else happened in 1963?
Well, the number one song of the year was Surfin' USA by the Beach Boys.
Yeah, the Beach Boys, big Beach Boys era.
Yep.
We also had the invention of the lava lamp, which was invented by a British accountant named Edward Craven Walker. When you think lava lamps, you think British accountants, don't you?
Absolutely. Big era for lava lamps,
Yeah.
the 60s there, and the Beach Boys together. Another invention, or a discovery rather, quasars were discovered. This is a word that's short for quasi-stellar object, and they're kind of just fake stars, basically.
Yeah. So quasars were discovered and then the name quasar was invented.
Yeah, it's a good name.
Yes. We also had a US children's TV show called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And it premiered and ran until 2001.
2001?
2001, so a good run from Mr. Rogers. So this is very famous in the US. We never got it over here, obviously. But his big shtick was that he urged people to be very nice to one another. And this is why for the last 24 years, nobody has been nice.
At least in the US.
Yes.
Okay, another TV show, Leave It to Beaver, which I think everyone's heard of and no one has ever watched.
Yep.
Another US TV show. That had its final episode and it answered the biggest mystery of the show, and that was how Beaver got his nickname.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much like Lost or something when all the answers in the final episode.
Yeah, we're not going to spoil it here.
Oh no, I'll spoil it.
Are you going to spoil
I don't
it?
care. Yeah.
Okay, where did he get his nickname?
His name was Theodore, and apparently when his brother, when he was born, his brother couldn't say the name Theodore, and he called him Tweeter, which became Beaver. So it's kind of a...
Was this a real person?
I don't think so, but it's a real person explanation. It's not very imaginative.
It's a very convoluted backstory for a sitcom.
made-up story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh well. Anyway, the nation can now rest easy.
Yes. The most popular book of the year was The Shoes of the Fisherman by Morris West. And this is apparently a story about the election of a Russian pope who was formerly a prisoner. Sounds like an absolute cracker of a read.
Well, Morris West, very famous author. I have not read a single book of his. Another famous thing that happened, JFK was shot.
Yes. No good for JFK. We also had the creation of the smiley face, so the yellow man with the two dots and a smile. This was invented by graphic artist and advertising professional H.R. Ball, and it was part of a campaign to raise morale among insurance company employees, and they're the people who need their morale raised. Nothing more dire than being an insurance company employee.
Wow.
You need a smiley face there.
That was a wild time to be an accountant or an insurance professional.
Lava lamps and smiley faces all over the place.
There you go. Well, another thing that happened was Martin Luther King had himself a dream.
Yep. Good for him. And then he told everybody about it. Worst thing you can do with a dream. Don't bore people with your dreams.
You never bore people with your dreams.
Yes. And so, of course, we go to The Onion's Guide to Our Dumb Century for a few perhaps made-up headlines from the era. From the front page, dated July 17th, 1963, there's a big headline which says, Sinatra warns Ruskies to knock it off. So singer gives Khrushchev 24 hours to drop this commie bunk or it's ring-a-ding-ding for you bozos. Calls Soviet premier a world-class knucklehead.
That was the character of most of his songs of this era, I think.
Yes. And there were plenty of things in 1963, an action-packed year for newspaper headlines. So, of course, they did have one for JFK as well,
yep.
which Kennedy slain by CIA, Mafia, Castro, LBJ, Teamsters, Freemasons. President shot 129 times from 43 different angles. Jacqueline Kennedy catches husband's brain with grace aplomb. So there
Yes,
you go.
well, we shouldn't laugh about
We
it, but it's
shouldn't.
anyway, it's
Too soon?
not too soon. No, not too soon.
Yes.
It was last century. And of course, 1963, most importantly, saw the release of The Birds.
Yes, so we will be recapping The Birds shortly. But our reminder that the HitchPod episodes are now on YouTube if that's how you prefer to listen. You can go listen to them via youtube.hitchpodonline.com. And while you're poking about in those kind of places, go to newsletter.hitchpodonline.com and you can sign up to my newsletter, which covers a variety of topics, one of which is movies. And now Kat is about to recap The Birds.
Indeed. So, we've got a lovely little romantic comedy. This is featuring socialite Melanie Daniels, Tippi Hedren, and Mitch Brenner, Rod Taylor. They meet cute at a pet store, and he's apparently intriguing enough for Melanie to then buy his much younger sister Kathy a pair of lovebirds, drive them 60 miles up the coast, track down where he lives, borrow a boat to cross a lake, break into his house, and leave the birds along with a happy birthday note.
Yes.
So in 1963, this was perfectly normal behaviour.
And it was even more convoluted than what you've said there, because she, to track him down required at least 2 or 3 steps. She had to ask like a dude at a general store and go find a school teacher and decode the name of the sibling.
Yeah,
crazy stuff.
feels like that might have been a montage in a more modern movie.
Yes.
Anyway, perfectly normal behaviour, or at least it was if you knew you were in a movie.
Yes.
So on the way back from dropping off the birds, again in the boat, Melanie is attacked by a swooping seagull, and that's enough of an excuse for Mitch to invite her to dinner to meet the family.
Yes. Yep.
So Melanie decides she'll go along with this. She's going to stay the night, so she rents a room off Annie, who is both Kathy's teacher, Kathy being the child,
Yes.
and an ex of Mitch's.
Yeah, so potential turmoil there. Potential love triangle.
So after a perfectly pleasant dinner, despite Mitch's mother, Lydia, being a little bit wary of Melanie's party girl reputation and indeed wary of everyone that Mitch brings home, we cut back to Annie's house. Melanie and Annie are having a chat, which is eventually interrupted by, first off, Mitch phoning to invite Melanie to Kathy's birthday party the next day. What a date. What a date.
Yep.
Come to my
Come to my
kid
11-year-old
birthday party.
birthday party.
And anyway, also interrupted by a bird ramming into the door.
So birds are being slightly weird.
Yes, that's weird. Seems to revolve around Melanie at this point. Anyway, it's not as weird as what happens the next day, because halfway through this birthday party, the birds get fed up with Melanie's backstory about her mother and they start attacking everybody. So it is all a bit terrifying at this point, and then they get everyone to safety. But Melanie agrees to spend the night at Mitch's house.
Yeah. She's looking for an excuse. She finally found one.
Yeah. And this is not necessarily a great idea, because more birds then fly down the chimney and attack them. The birds scale up their attacks further the next day. It escalates beautifully. Lydia goes to visit her neighbour and discovers his eyes have all been pecked out, which has apparently killed him. Meanwhile, Melanie's going up to the school to visit the school to discover there's a zillion crows who chase the students back into the town.
Yes.
Then the birds attack the whole town.
Yep.
Things start exploding. Horse and carriages run free.
It gets wild.
Which I think we thought was escaped from a different movie.
Yep.
Telephone booths are destroyed. Everything is completely out of control. And Mitch and Melanie escape the town attack to go pick up Kathy and Annie. But Annie is now dead.
Yep.
They've killed off a major character here, killed by the birds while protecting Kathy. Then they head home and barricade themselves in, but not well enough, because, of course, the birds keep pecking their way in the windows.
They're very
somehow.
relentless, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. There's lots of them.
I assume they send the woodpeckers in first to peck things down, and then the other birds come in. It's all very coordinated.
Yeah. Anyway, for no good reason about now, Melanie heads up alone to the attic to be tortured by Alfred Hitchcock.
Yes.
She is attacked by even more birds and is almost pecked to death, but Mitch swoops in to save her. She's in rough shape, so they've got to take her to hospital. Mitch slowly goes outside, prepares the car. They creep out, they inch their way to the car and drive away, watched very closely from the bird's eye view.
Yeah,
of
there's
all the
birds everywhere
at the house.
watching them as they sneak out. Yeah,
And that's the end
that's
of
the end.
the
It's
movie.
a very exciting movie.
Your Honor, this is an armed robbery, and that would be a minimum amount of bail in a case of this type.
The request is denied, Counselor.
Put him downstairs, officer.
Introducing PayPalabi. Next time you're wrongly accused of a crime, don't waste time with expensive lawyers and impossible searches for justice. Instead, PayPalabi it. Receive an ironclad alibi for your whereabouts with all the convenience of one PayPal payment. PayPal-alibi. Innocence is one click away. All right, so this is the section where I'd ordinarily do 3 jokes and a limerick on the movie. But as I was going in to write my jokes on this, I had some notes, and then I realised I could just write a sketch about this movie. So I have written a sketch, as you would know if you'd already signed up to newsletter.hitchpodonline.com.
It's available there, newsletter.
So it's a sketch about Alfred Hitchcock publicising the birds and the potential confusion that might arise as he tries to explain what's going on. But I did do a limerick.
Okay.
So a limerick on the birds. Emus and eagles and robins and wrens, parrots and toucans and puffins and hens, woodpeckers and storks, cockatoos and auks, all of them no longer our fine-feathered friends.
Very nice. You get thumbs up for that.
Excellent. All right. So what do we think on our rewatch of this movie?
We definitely enjoyed it on the rewatch.
Yeah.
You can certainly remember this movie pretty well, so I don't feel like I got too much extra out of the rewatch.
Yeah.
I just confirmed that I didn't really care too much about the 2 main characters.
No.
They're both a bit cold, but I think putting children into the mix made it very much an effective people at peril kind of movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this was only the second time I've watched it, so I did probably spot a few new things that I didn't spot the first time around.
Yep.
And I do remember, I remembered loving this movie. It was one of my favourites the first time around. And the first half of this movie, before the birds, really get into it, I did feel a little bit more padded to me this time around.
Yeah.
Just a few bloated scenes that went on too long, some characterisation stuff. I don't need to hear about Melanie's mother or how difficult it is for her to be a wealthy socialite. I'm not really interested in that. It's just a bit dull to me.
There was a bit too much backstory of the other woman who worked in the shop who we never saw again.
Yeah. There's a little bit of padding in the first half, I think. But once the birds kick in, I'm loving every minute of that. I'm cackling and laughing and enjoying the attacks as they go on.
Yeah, it escalates perfectly, as I said. Yeah. Great zombie movie.
A great zombie movie, yes.
Yeah.
And I did. I listened to our previous podcast on this one, and we were making fun of the cop in the previous one, saying he was a big birds defender. Like he came in and just, the birds can't be evolved. But I had a bit more sympathy for him this time. As he came in, he summoned, after the birds fly down the chimney and break everything, and they have to fight them all off. And by the time the cop gets there, the birds are all gone. I'm not sure what he's supposed to do. Is he supposed to go out and arrest birds or get them into a lineup or something? I'm not quite sure what he's supposed to be doing. So I think it's fair enough for him to just say, look, I don't know why you're calling me. Don't bother me with this. Your birds attacked you. I'm not going to arrest birds. What's he supposed to do? If he shows up in mid-attack, then you kind of expect the police to do something, maybe pull out a gun and start shooting them or something, or get people to safety.
Missed opportunity. He should have said something like, looks like the perpetrators are flown or something.
Yes. So I had a bit more sympathy for the cop this time around.
Yeah.
Yes.
So were there any overrated scenes?
Well, the most famous scene is the jungle gym scene.
Yeah.
That's the children singing, the Melanie smoking her cigarette and kind of looking around, waiting for this interminable song to end.
It's creepy, really creepy. The song, creepy nursery rhyme, or are all nursery rhymes creepy?
When they're sung by children, they are. I think, especially
children en masse.
Yes,
they're always
Yeah. So and the way the camera just gets. You see a couple of birds behind her, and then she smokes, and then it just gets right in close on her, and then you turn around, and there's this infinite number of birds behind her. I think it's brilliant and chilling, and it deserves all the plaudits it gets.
It's not overrated.
Not overrated.
It's good, just as good on every rewatch.
Yeah, absolutely
brilliant.
Fantastic scene.
Then underrated. Let's think. I mean, there's a few underrated scenes, but we really enjoyed the scene where Melanie and Annie first meet, didn't we?
Yes, because there's this kind of very nice understated tension between them because of Mitch. Because we know that Annie's, she was the first one to pursue Mitch to this little town, and for some reason, despite the fact he's no longer interested, she's hanging around there. She's become a school teacher, and this new potential flame for Mitch has shown up, and they're just kind of she knows what's up, and Melanie knows what's up, and they're just having a little bit of biting comment at one another.
Yeah, and of course Annie, quite rightly, probably feels a bit annoyed because her backstory was solid. She went to the town as the school teacher.
Yeah.
She created a plausible backstory, not just walking into town with a couple of lovebirds to deliver.
And claiming that Annie's the best friend, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is underrated. They're nice to each other. They're sharing cigarettes and whiskey, something. They have a
I
drink
think they
together.
have the whiskey later
Yeah,
when
right.
they have the sleepover. This first one, she just popped in. She's been doing some gardening out the back, I think, and gets tracked down, and they have a bit of a cigarette, and then we get a little bit of backstory at this stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very nice. I always enjoy a good scene of people who are pretending to like one another when they don't. Well, not yet. I think they grow to like one another a bit more in later
Very
scenes.
polite.
Yes. And we've also got the book club going. So this was based on a book and a short story, really, right?
Yeah.
And you've read the short story?
Yes. So Daphne du Maurier's short story novella, very easy read. And it was more similar than I expected because I thought Hitch threw most of it away.
Yep.
But there's quite a bit that is still in there. Mm-hmm. No romance, of course, that was added in.
Yep.
But it was just a family. But there wasn't a young child.
Yep.
Some of the script was relatively similar from the young child. The house barricading was the same.
Mm-hmm.
The dead neighbour was the same or similar. Yep. There were news reports and then dead air on the radio, like all good zombie movies.
Yeah.
The police, etc. That was all in the book.
Okay. Okay. So sounds like a good book to read, and it won't take long to read. We'll put a post up on our Patreon shortly. So if you are a patron, you can sign up to read that one and share your thoughts with it. I haven't read it yet, but I will. It won't take me long.
Yeah, if you like the movie, you should give the book a read.
Yes, and also on Patreon, we've gone back to watching some movies from the Hitchcock era that have Hitchcock-esque qualities. So we recently watched Niagara with Marilyn Monroe, which we both really liked.
Yeah,
right?
lots of murder in this one.
Yeah, it's a good one. I'm not sure I expected to like that one as much as I did. There were some good twists and turns in that one. So we talked about that over on the Patreon feed. So for a couple of bucks a month, you can have a listen to that and literally dozens and dozens of other movies we've discussed, including our original episodes on every single Hitchcock movie. So $2 a month. That's patreon.com/HitchPod.
And now we're going to have a look at some stats on our 5th spot ranking of the birds. So
tell
us about these.
This one's really fun to break down. So I actually had to go back and double check the numbers to make sure they were all right. But there's some really interesting stats on this one. So the highest ranking of this is first.
Yep.
Then,
not surprising.
Quite a few people had this one as their number one movie. You want to have a stab at what the lowest ranking for this one was?
20.
30th. Someone ranked this 30th. Someone thought
Someone
29
hates this
other
movie.
Hitchcock movies were better than this one.
Well, maybe they hate birds. I think it's quite plausible.
So there's often lists where movies aren't in it because people haven't seen all the movies.
Yeah.
So when we ask people to rank their movies, you often see gaps. So I wouldn't have been surprised if The Birds was not in someone's list.
Yeah.
But to have it in the list and 30th was very interesting. So the percentage of people who had it in the top 20 was 83%. So most people had it in the top 20, but that's still a lot less than some other movies. The percentage of people, only 52% of people had it in their top 10.
Well, so there's not a great deal of love for the birds here.
But if you love it, you really, really love it.
Right.
And it gets pushed right up there. And so the difference, and we did when we ran the original poll for this, we gave our patrons more votes. So their votes were weighted more heavily. So if you take that extra weighting out of there, this movie would have been number 10, but the patrons pushed it all the way up to number 5. So
patrons loved it.
I can't work out why there would be a difference between that much of a difference between the patrons and non-patrons, but fascinating.
Maybe it's the people who listened to our previous podcast where we raved about this movie.
Very possibly, yes. So I thought that was very interesting. The breakdown of the birds. Usually this is just like it's. All the numbers are all very predictable. This was this had a much wider variance in the answers.
And I originally had it ranked at number 6, so it wasn't in my top 5.
No, it was in mine. But we did run some updated polls to gauge opinions on the movie. So we asked people, who was your favourite male character?
And I would say that's Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah, there's not many men in this movie, but 50% of the votes went to Mitch, and the guy with the exploding cigarette came in second. We also asked, who is your favourite female character? A lot more female characters in this movie. Annie gets 50% of the vote. Melanie came in second with that one. I also asked, where do you least like to see birds gather ominously?
I would say inside the house.
Yeah, 63% of people said in your chimney.
Ooh.
And the jungle gym came in second on that one.
Yep.
And then the final major question here was, have you ever broken into somebody's house to leave them a gift? And this was tied between yes and no. So an equal number of people said yes and no, but there were a couple of people who voted for, I refuse to answer this question based on legal advice. Okay. So I think that's a tiebreaker in favour of yes. Yes, that's what I think too. We did also ask people to name their favourite scenes when they did the poll, and we had the vast majority of people said the jungle gym scene. So, as predicted, that is...
Not the inside the diner scene where the kid goes, are the birds going to eat us, Mum?
No, it was the jungle gym scene. So definitely the most famous scene of the movie. Not overrated, well beloved. We did have some votes also for the phone booth scene. People liked that scene. And we had one person who was very keen on the ending. They liked the way it ends.
Yeah,
and it's great.
that's great.
It's a very understated and chilling ending. So, very good.
So we are going to revisit our rankings now, and I had it 6th originally. You had it 3rd.
Yeah, I had a 3rd. It was number 1 on my list for a long time. Yeah.
A few films knocked it off eventually. So the only difference for me, I think, is I put it now above the 39 steps. Originally, I had the 39 steps. So possibly it'll climb to 4th overall instead of 6th, but at the minute it's just there as number 3 underneath The Notorious and The Lady Vanishes. They're the only 2 movies so far that I like better than The Birds.
So it's above Strangers on a Train?
Above Strangers on a Train.
Right, okay. So you're Notorious, The Lady Vanishes, The Birds, and Strangers on a Train. That's just of the ones we've rewatched so far. Yes. I reckon I might knock this one down slightly from my original position. I think I may end up having it 4th or 5th. So we may end up at the same spot, just coming from different directions.
Yeah.
So I am putting this one behind Dial M for Murder.
Right.
I enjoyed Dial M for Murder more on the rewatch.
Yeah, right.
So Dial M for Murder is currently my number 1 of these rewatched. Then number 2 is The Birds. Number 3 is Rope. And I also had Rope higher originally. Rope dropped down on a rewatch as well. So,
yeah, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, Dial M for Murder has moved up my list. It is still my favourite.
And now we're going to deep dive into a particular scene.
Yes. So this is a scene where Mitch's mother, Lydia, is on the phone complaining about the chicken feed. And we'll play a bit of that for you now.
This won't take long, Miss Daniel. Hello, Fred. Lydia Brenner. I didn't interrupt your dinner, did I?
Thank you. I'd love one.
Fred, that feed you sold me is no good. The chicken feed. Well, it's just no good. The chickens won't eat it. They're always hungry. I opened a sack for them when I got home, and they just wouldn't touch it. Yeah, now, you know chickens as well as I do, and when they won't eat, there's just something wrong with what they're being fed, that's all. No, they're not fussy chickens. Who? What's he got to do with it?
Is that your father?
Mm-hmm. Please sit down.
Fred, I don't care how many sacks of feed you sold him. My chicken... Oh, I see. Dan Fawcett. This afternoon. Well, that just proves what I'm saying. The feed you sold us... Oh. Well, maybe I better go over and see him. You don't think there's something going around, do you?
All right. So that actually continues slightly longer, but we cut it off there. But yeah, you get the gist, right?
Yeah.
And the reason we chose this one for a kind of deep dive is just because I remarked as we were watching it how good an example it is of a one-way telephone conversation.
Yeah.
And you do see these all the time in movies. Obviously, you see just one half of a phone call, and they're almost always done terribly.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
They don't, actors don't leave long enough gaps between their dialogue, or they don't really react to what's apparently being said on the other end. They just kind of say their lines, and it's apparently a very difficult thing to get right. But this is great from Jessica Tandy.
Yeah.
She's really good at it. So.
She's really good in this movie overall.
Yeah. So So right from the beginning of this, like she's interrupted with what she's saying to Melanie. So it seems for all the world as if someone has just picked up the phone. Like she's halfway through saying something to Melanie, she's interrupted, and then she's hello, and then she starts talking on the phone.
Yeah, so it's a good start.
It's very natural. And then there's a couple of times during the actual conversation itself where she's like halfway through a sentence, and it's as if the person on the other end has interrupted her mid-sentence.
Yeah.
So it's really realistic.
It does go on a little bit longer, but the other thing that I really love about this is that she really seems to drop some curiosity seeds for us as we're watching.
Yeah.
So it's like, I wonder what's being said to her.
Yeah.
And it's even more tantalising because Melanie and Mitch don't seem that interested because they're just absorbed with each other.
Yeah.
They're carrying on
you can
with
hear them
other
in the
action in the
background,
scene. So they're not interested, but we are.
Yeah.
Like it feels like we're really eavesdropping on this conversation, and we're in our head going, "What? What is he saying? What's he saying?" You know. But I think it's just very cleverly done.
Yeah, and her facial reactions are also perfect. Obviously, you can't see them on a podcast, but if you've seen the movie, you know, like you genuinely believe she's listening to somebody on the other end. It's very well done, and it that did make me think. Because around about this time, we had the comedian Bob Newhart, and he'd started doing sketches pretty much. A solid chunk of his sketches were he was one half of a phone call, and all the comedy was derived from kind of inferring what was being said on the other side.
Yeah.
And it's probably too much of a stretch to think this had an impact on this scene, but it does feel like maybe there's something in the zeitgeist where people realize that you could do these phone calls a bit more realistically, and you should probably think a little bit more about what was going on at the other end and how you could be portraying that information on your end of the phone call.
Yes, I'm sure Hitchcock would have watched Bob Newhart.
Yeah. So very, very interesting. It's a very trivial piece of acting, but when it's done right, as it is here, I found it very effective.
It seemed to be a gamble. There weren't any walls. A lot of man was walking around with a large pair of
Darlington sleeping tablets. The proven drowsiness of somebody telling you about their boring dreams.
man hiding behind a tall chimney had his just then the proprietor came in and accused him of cheating up 7 clubs.
So now we're up to the Hitchcock do-over, and Hitch liked to redo ideas from his own movies. He remade them frequently, so let's assume he had a further 62 years to think about the birds. What would he change this time around?
Yes, and of course the first thing we always look at, as originally suggested by Freddie over on Patreon, is what different titles might he have? Maybe the birds is too old-fashioned these days. Maybe it's the executives want something a bit more interesting. So we do ask ChatGPT for this, and I'll give you 4 examples that ChatGPT came up with, and you can tell me, give a thumbs up or thumbs down on these ones. Feathered fiends.
Thumbs down.
On a wing and a scare.
Oh, that's terrible too.
Angry Birds, the live-action movie.
Well, I mean, I guess it'd get a certain audience in, the wrong audience, but
Yep, and the final one it suggested was Stranger Wings.
Stranger Wings. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's bad. Let's just stick with the birds.
We'll stick with the birds, I think,
Yeah.
So what would Hitch do differently when he remade the birds?
I mean, he would be using everything at his disposal now rather than real birds. So all of the birds would be CGI. You wouldn't be allowed to use real birds for anything other than something a bit comforting.
Yeah.
So the CGI birds would be pretty terrifying.
They'd be freaky. I mean, the 1963 effects, which some may not be as realistic to modern eyes, but they were still pretty confronting.
Pretty good,
And if this had proper CGI birds in it, swooping down and attacking you from all directions, I'd find this absolutely terrifying.
Exactly.
I think with CG like birds that you actually look like real birds, you'd have quite a movie.
So could we have extended the rom-com throughout the movie? I mean, once it becomes a horror, it really changes the genre, except that there's a lot of horror movies that do have a fair amount of comedy throughout the horror as well.
Yeah, I guess you probably could, I think. I think I think you could definitely tighten up the early parts of the movie. You can still have the slow burn for the bird attack. But yeah, Hitch could lean into more as a rom-com in the first half, maybe even make it more of a love triangle. Yeah. And then, I think you're right. I think you could actually continue a little bit of the romantic comedy in between the bird attacks. I think something like what's that zombie movie with Simon Pegg?
Shaun of the
Dead. Yeah, something like Shaun of the Dead, where it's still a bit comedic, but it's also scary as well.
Yeah.
I think Hitch could enjoy playing in that area.
And I think there's potential for, particularly with CGI, because they ran out of budget in this movie. That's part of why they ended where they did.
Yeah.
We could have had that original ending that Hitch planned, and that was them getting to the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was completely covered in birds.
That would be such a great ending.
I think it would be great, and particularly if they haven't seen any birds on the journey. Yeah. So a little bit of a journey without birds. Oh, we've left the birds behind in Hicktown, wherever they were. And then they get to the Golden Gate Bridge. So I think that would improve
You'd definitely have to restore that ending.
Yeah.
I'm still devastated they weren't able to do that ending the first time around. Such a good ending.
Would have been great. Yeah. I need to tell you too, I have had experience with things coming down the chimney before.
Oh, really?
And this was one time in an old house where I had a functioning fireplace, and there was a possum or something that had fallen down the chimney and died in the chimney.
So it stunk.
And then it stunk for quite a while. We couldn't even use that room for a while. And then it got infested with maggots and flies, and the flies could not get out going up, so they all came out down the chimney. And there was one time where the smell had almost gone, and we started using the room again, and there were just flies coming down the chimney, a little bit like the birds, not quite as many.
Terrifying.
But they were massive. They'd been well fed, and it was just absolutely revolting. Yeah.
All right.
Gross.
So you've had experience in this scene.
Yeah. So maybe we could have flies coming down the chimney.
Yeah.
Anyway, who would play the parts?
Oh well, I was thinking about this. I thought I think Margot Robbie's.
Yes,
she's very Tippi Hedren-ish.
Yeah.
Melanie Daniels. I think she's beautiful blonde. Yeah, get her in there. What about for Mitch?
Mitch, Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt, yeah, a little bit of Chris Pratt. Yeah, I could see that. Mitch is a very strange actor choice in this particular one.
I just don't find him at all attractive,
No.
and we need an attractive guy for this.
It does not make any sense that Melanie is so obsessed with him that she's sprinting halfway across the state to track him down. It's very
crazy.
Strange.
So we've got some easy answers here for Lydia. That has to be Meryl Streep or Glenn Close, one of those two.
Yeah, one of these older women who can act the hell out of anything.
That's right.
Yeah, and who's Florence Pugh going to play?
Look, I think Florence Pugh has to play Annie.
Yeah.
Because really we certainly can't cast her as Kathy.
No.
Kathy's being the little girl.
Kathy's just a random child they find on the
Florence
street.
Pugh, she'll have to dye her hair dark, but that'll be fine.
Yeah,
I
she'll
think
be
she
fine
would
with
be
that.
great as Annie. And what about Kathy? We've seen a few good child actors lately. I'm going for the redheaded girl from Big Little Lies.
Okay, I'm not sure I remember.
Her name is Darby Camp. There were a lot of good child actors in that series.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. Yeah. We do need a child for that. I mean, the child actor they had in that. Well, yeah, she was a child
Average.
actor in a Hitchcock movie.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What about ideas like a sequel? If Hollywood said, "All right, let's not just make the birds. Let's add a sequel to it. Let's sequelify it." There was already a sequel, of course, a terrible one.
Yeah,
as,
no doubt.
Terrible ratings. Everyone hated it. The Birds 2: Land's End from 1994.
Yeah, let's ignore that one.
Yep. So I had an idea for a sequel where instead of, we all know that birds migrate during different seasons. I quite like the idea that the humans have realised, all right, the birds are taking over. We need to migrate away from the birds. So they head further and further south, all the way down to Antarctica, where, of course, who do they bump into in Antarctica?
The penguins in Antarctica.
So they got to fight off the penguins, but they're the last of the birds they have to confront.
Yeah, right.
And
that's great because penguins can be human sized. That's the big ones.
Yeah, so it's also a sequel to March of the Penguins.
Yeah, right.
So you get double your sequels.
Double your merchandise.
Yeah. And of course, this will be called March of the Humans.
And the merchandise would be good for this because you have all sorts of birds in stuffed toy form.
Yep.
Be great. So anyway, what about a prequel? Is it Melanie?
Yeah, I think.
Or is it Annie? Is it Annie's romance?
Could be Annie's romance.
With Mitch.
Yeah, could be the Annie Mitch doomed romance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or as you say, could be Melanie's adventures in. We do hear a little bit about Melanie's adventures in Rome that somehow ended with her skinny dipping in a fountain or something.
Right.
So we could have some wacky comedy where her and all her rich friends get into all kinds of misadventures. I'm not quite sure.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, if it is Melanie's adventures in Rome, ChatGPT suggested that could be called Postcards from the Colosseum. Fair enough. What about an 8-part TV show? What could we do for that one?
There's
a prestige drama.
It's very popular to have these TV shows following in a zombie kind of mode and someone gets killed every episode as the season progresses. So post-apocalyptic kind
I
of.
think so.
Yeah.
I mean, you've set up this apocalyptic world with the birds attacking. I think something. I genuinely would love to see.
Yeah,
I would
good.
love to see a TV series a la The Walking Dead. Small groups of humans just trying to survive against. There's always the threat of birds looming out here.
Yeah.
And
they can't kill all the birds because the birds help to keep the world ticking. Fertilizing plants and all the rest of it. So
I'm not sure they'd be able to. Like if the
too
birds,
many of them.
too many birds. I genuinely think somebody should make the show. I think you set it 5 years after the movie.
Yep.
You make Kathy like an 18-year-old or 19-year-old or whatever it is, a hard-nosed leader of the group, leading her small faction of humans around, dealing with
that's great.
other factions. I really want somebody to make this show. I'm going to pitch it to Hollywood.
And that 17, 18-year-old who was in Barbie, what's her name? Adriana Goldblatt or something like that. That she would be perfect in the role of Kathy as the leader of the group.
Yep. So please, Hollywood, make the Birds TV show, which ChatGPT has already suggested should be called The Squawking Dead.
Oh no, that is so bad.
But it also suggested Birdland, and I quite like the title Birdland.
Yeah.
I'd watch a show called Birdland.
Birdland's good.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's how we think this could be redone.
Wowee. Well, we can't watch Birdland yet.
No.
Or maybe by the time you listen to this in 20 years' time, Birdland will be a thing.
Yes.
But what should we watch if we love the birds?
Well, before we go on to the related movies, happy birthday to Stage Fright, which is 75 next month, and Rebecca, which is 85.
Wow.
85-year-old Rebecca.
Yeah.
Yes. So related movies, according to Google, if you enjoy movies like The Birds, you will also like Jaws from 1975. A giant white shark fatally attacks swimmers on the shores of Amity Island, so Sheriff Martin Brody teams up with a marine biologist and a local fisherman to hunt down the creature.
And what this is reminding me of is Jaws is such a masculine freaking movie. It's just goes to show Hitchcock did The Birds, complete female cast, all the females were in charge, and it's a much different feel to something like Jaws,
I love Jaws.
Jaws should be the one that people are saying is an anti-female movie, not anything Hitchcock did.
Yep. We also have Night of the Living Dead from 1968, so picking up on the kind of zombie vibes of The Birds. Google's picked up on that. Night of the Living Dead, a group of unsuspecting people get trapped in an old farmhouse after the dead unexpectedly rise. They always unexpectedly rise. You don't often expect them.
Expecting them to rise from the grave.
After the dead unexpectedly rise from the grave and seek the living as food. So this stars Dwayne Jones and Judith O'Dea.
That was 1968.
1968. It's pretty much the first zombie film.
First zombie movie.
First major zombie movie.
Well, except for The Birds.
Except for The Birds, yeah.
So was there really no zombie movies?
There may have been early ones.
Probably,
This is kind of the first big...
if you'd asked me what year Night of the Living Dead was, I would have gone, I don't know, 1998. That's probably what I would have guessed.
Yes. And there was one more movie that didn't involve sharks or zombies. And this was called Wait Until Dark from 1967. And the synopsis of this one, Susie is blind and stays with her husband Sam. A woman hands over a doll containing heroin to Sam, which he unknowingly takes home. And then a group of gangsters make terrifying plans to get the doll back. So this stars Audrey Hepburn and Alan Arkin.
Sounds very dark.
It does sound...
It sounds nothing like The Birds.
Well, I think the idea is it's... someone trapped inside a house and people trying to break in and get them. So I think that's the link. As always, when we plug this into Google, we have to chop out all the ones where it says, if you like The Birds, you'll also like Psycho, Vertigo, Rear Window. Just, we know that.
Yes.
And of course, if you don't like The Birds, then you probably shouldn't watch those movies either.
No. And if you don't like The Birds, if it was number 30 on your list, you probably aren't even listening to this podcast.
But next month...
we're going to watch the movie that beat it for the Best Picture Oscar.
Yes.
And that movie is called Tom Jones. I have not seen this. It's directed by Tony Richardson, starring Albert Finney, big star of the time, and Susanna York, and features romantic and chivalrous adventures of adopted bastard Tom Jones in 18th century England.
Yes, and this is no relation to the singer, if it's not unusual. It's a completely different Tom Jones.
And is this... done in Hollywood? Is this an American movie
I
that's
think, yeah.
going to be following someone in 18th century England?
I think so, yeah. So
I can't imagine this is any good.
We'll see. We may watch Tom Jones live in concert as an alternative.
Yeah.
We'll see what we end up watching. But either way, we'll probably watch the original Tom Jones movie. We'll go through all the major categories, Best Picture, Director, Actor, Actress, etc. And we will see if The Birds was robbed.
Best special effects?
Best special effects, definitely robbed for that one.
That was Cleopatra that year.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, which we are not going to watch.
No,
no. We already know it was robbed for best special effects.
Yes. But until then, I am Dan Lipke, eyes gruesomely pecked out of my head.
And I'm Kat Jones, having a pretty rotten birthday party. Thank you for listening to HitchPod. Please come and talk to us on
Blue Sky
at
HitchPodOnline.com
or on Facebook by searching for HitchPod. And you can also email us directly at feedback@hitchpodonline.com. And if you want more Hitchcock content, please consider becoming a HitchPod supporter. Just go to patreon.com/HitchPod. And for as little as $2 a month, you can get access to our Season 1 coverage of every single Hitchcock movie, as well as bonus episodes on Hitchcock-esque movies. Invitations also to watch live rewatches and much, much more.
Well, the man at the post office sent me. He said you could tell me the name of the little Brenner girl.
Kathy?
The one who lives in the White House across the bay?
Yes, that's the one, Kathy Brenner.
He seemed sure it was either Alice or Lois.
Which is why the mail never gets delivered to the right place in this town.